Antarctica was discovered in 1820 by Russian explorer Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen and British explorer Edward Bransfield. Early explorers focused on sealing and whaling. The discovery of Antarctica was an amazing footstep in human expedition. A continent covered in ice, untouched by human civilization for thousands of years. This place holds so many mysteries I'm itching to uncover. What's under the layers of ice? Undiscovered ancient civilizations, aliens, Atlantis. Who knows what secrets lie beneath thousands of years of solid ice? The list is endless. In the past, countries around the world claimed parts of Antarctica in the early 20th century, leading to potential conflicts. To prevent territorial disputes, the Antarctic Treaty was signed in 1961, declaring Antarctica a continent dedicated to peaceful scientific research. Since the treaty, researchers have studied climate change, geology, biology, and astronomy in the frozen desert. Despite its harsh conditions, Antarctica is a unique and valuable place for scientific research and international cooperation. That is, until recently, we uncovered something underneath the ice that mankind could not resist, turning us back into savages. Fossil fuel. The continent is massive, and so was a recently discovered natural deposit underneath thick layers of ice. This is the largest petroleum reservoir discovered in human history. Geologists estimate over 1 trillion barrels of untapped oil underneath the crust of Antarctica. That's more oil discovered than anywhere else in the world combined together. That's insane. By now, the world has exhausted most of its uses for fossil fuel and converted over to CO2 for energy. Neo-Tokyo is located in Antarctica, long abandoned by the United Nations. Like Night City, it's a neutral, free, autonomous state. Mega corporations recently stepped in to compete ownership of the Neon City. Since Neo-Tokyo is the largest, most successful city on the continent, it's also a major hub for scientific research. With the collapse of the United Nations many years ago, there's nothing stopping anyone from taking anything they desire. Sovoil and Petrochem raced over to the continent to set up territorial control for mining operations. As major industries started converting back to fossil fuel as energy, the price for CO2 skyrocketed as Petrochem lowered their production of CO2 in favor of refining crude oil. Biotechnica, the patent owners of CO2, started losing revenue quickly. It was only a matter of time before they filed for bankruptcy. Petrochem sent a monetary offer to acquire the dying business. When Biotechnica refused, Petrochem sent soldiers to storm the HQ in Rome, Italy, to steal the high-sugar wheat formula of Triticum vulgaris mega suavis. With the decline of revenue, Biotechnica couldn't afford an army to defend itself. In a last-ditch effort, Biotechnica destroyed the patent formula for Triticum vulgaris mega suavis that's needed to create CO2. Petrochem responded by executing the CEO of Biotechnica and taking over its assets. Petrochem and Sovoil no longer have a supply of Triticum vulgaris mega suavis from Biotechnica to produce CO2. The world must now rely on the two oil giants for its fuel. Luckily, CO2 motors are backwards compatible with gasoline and diesel combustion, eliminating the need to rebuild devices that power them. Reverting back to fossil fuels has increased carbon footprint everywhere in the world. It normally doesn't snow in Antarctica, but the climate's changing. Anything is possible with power and greed. Sovoil took note of Petrochem's aggressive desire for acquiring oil and started combating their campaign by buying out land where oil is located on the icy continent. To prevent the Soviet Union from expanding, Petrochem set up a blockade around Antarctica waters to prevent Soviet expansion. When Petrochem asked Militech for assistance to push Sovoil back, they refused, stating their ties to American interests and democracy prevents them from violating the Antarctic Treaty, established by the UN over a century ago. When Petrochem questioned about the dissolved United Nations that no longer exist, Militech responded back saying, "It just doesn't feel right." Although Militech is a corporation based in the USA, it has ties to American interest as well. They chose to avoid direct conflict between the two fuel suppliers. Sovoil's navy punched right through Petrochem's blockade, making a hasty landing on the icy coast. The Soviet forces were more advanced and larger in numbers than initially expected. Upon landing, they quickly established a foothold and set up bases on the icy coastal region. Petrochem forces retreated to Neo-Tokyo and requested assistance, but they too refused, stating Neo-Tokyo is a neutral state and doesn't want to become part of any global conflict. The mayor did agree to work together as a collaborative force to keep the city protected from Soviet attacks. With a little bit of diplomacy, Militech and Arasaka provided drones and weapons, Zetatech provided logistics and electronics, Trauma Team provided emergency medical services, and Tsunami Defense Systems built fortified turrets around the city. Although the city was heavily reinforced, it was no match for a Soviet attack from Sovoil if one ever occurred. The Soviets' army was massive, even more so than Militech and Arasaka combined together. Due to risk of invasion from Sovoil, Petrochem forces was not allowed into the city of fear of being a military target. Petrochem instead set up bases several dozen miles away from Neo-Tokyo. Neo-Tokyo agreed to supply Petrochem forces with equipment in exchange for a cut of their oil production and intelligence on the Red Army in the Antarctic region. Petrochem agreed to provide Neo-Tokyo with shipments of oil, troop movement, force numbers, radio communications, and anything else relating to Sovoil's advance onto Antarctica upon request. The Fifth Corporate War has officially started. Sovoil and Petrochem are at war. Biotechnica is now renamed into Petrochem and all of its assets. The original owners of Biotechnica will eventually retaliate against Petrochem in the future. It's only a matter of time before they find a way to sabotage Petrochem's ability to acquire oil, affecting billions around the world.